Hi guys, and welcome to JPWC 24, an interview with Alex, and we're here to talk about his experiences and mental health. So thank you for joining us, Alex.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
So let's start with your story and why mental health matters to you.
Yeah, I guess mental health matters to me because I've had close friends, family that are affected by it, things that have come up in my life that I've struggled through. So I think for men as well, we don't talk about it much, and it's hard to find those people that we trust that we can talk to, and that's why it's very important to me, and I take it quite seriously and try and be there for the people that are in my life.
Of course, of course. So you say that you've experienced it yourself and with friends. Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, for sure. So, I guess probably where I felt it the most is I'm a veteran, so I used to serve in the Air Force, and not that I don't think my personal experience was anything significant compared to others that serve and particularly that serve in the battlefield. I think that defense itself just presents a unique challenge in the amount of sacrifice you do make just in your everyday life, and then being surrounded by those people that are struggling with that. So in my first year, I had a group of troops that I was in charge of. I was in engineer, and that comes with a range of people from different backgrounds. You can imagine everyone's from all different walks of life that come together in the military, and then those people that you're then in charge of don't have very different backgrounds as well. So some of them had come from conflict zones, from very unique backgrounds as well, and then they're constantly moving, and you are moving yourself. So then you've got family issues on top of that, which can affect your mental health and all the pressures of serving as well. So in my time, and I've had troops and close friends, both uh, attempt suicide and commit suicide as well. So that for me was a very big eye opener into the mental health space, um, from experiencing that kind of loss, not only within your personal life, but then with those around you and how that affects those around you as well.
Of course, of course. I'm sorry to hear that you've had to experience that. And how long were you in the military for?
So I served for only about, I think it was like 8 years all up, that I served. So not too long. And then I moved out into the corporate world, which I think is its own unique challenge in that there's definitely less stress on people in the corporate world compared to the being in the military.
Of
But I
course.
think people talk about their own mental health less in the corporate world. It was very encouraged, and there was a lot of community and resources that you had access to in the military. And even though it's got its own issues, at least it was brought to light, and it was expected that you talked about it openly. In the corporate world, though, like I've had bosses that you can see feel very uncomfortable and will just shut down as soon as you start talking about anything mental health, anything, even anything family related. Sometimes there's just like not that connection there because it's like we keep our work life and home life separate is kind of the way that I think corporate approaches things, which is very interesting coming from the military was my first professional job. So coming from that has been very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because, I mean, the stigma around men talking up about mental health, especially, you see the military and you think it's the men's men, it's the tough men that won't talk about
Yeah.
those things. But it's interesting that they encourage that. And yet, in a world that in normal everyday life where we should be talking about that, we're not.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, isn't it? That's very interesting to hear, though.
I
But
think
I
I
think
think for that, because the military had, in Australia at least, we had a royal commission into the amount of suicides that have come out of military service. That has made the military respond in a positive way. Now, I'm not saying it's great and it's not perfect, but it has forced them to do a lot of change and put a lot of resources into that. I think
Mm.
there's a saying in the Air Force that things don't change unless you have crosses in the ground, which is a very, when you're talking about aircraft design or the way you're approaching a mission, that you don't see anything change until people start dying. And I think that was the general feeling of, I guess, the suicides until the Royal Commission happened. Um, and so that's where I saw, just as I was getting out, because that happened, I think maybe a couple of years before I left. I started seeing a lot more positive change and a lot more effort being to put into just checking on checking on our mates and checking that people were getting the support that they needed. And that came through a bunch of different like veteran affairs efforts and everything else that was there. But then seeing the stark contrast between the military and then the corporate world, as the corporate world hasn't really caught up because it's just something that happens outside of work, which I think is a very narrow way of looking at it, because work is so much part of our lives. Like we spend 40 hours a week at least at work. People often work more than that. And people sometimes can, well, you see workplaces all the time, they say that we're family and that kind of thing, but then they don't want to talk about the hard subjects, which is suicide, which is depression, which is just mental health in general. So yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think I mean I've touched on it in a couple of my other videos as well, where when you spend so much time in one place, it's absolutely impossible to leave your workplace, your home life at the door. Like they say, leave work and home at home. But how on earth do you do that when something takes
Yeah.
up so much of your time?
Yeah.
And I think that we're coming away from those ideas now, and we are coming to the fact that, definitely in the UK at least, about talking about these things, but it's still not where it should be. And I think where the military has had this problem for so long, like you say, nothing happens until someone dies, which is awful, but at the same
Yeah.
time, good. Well done, you're doing something about it. Whereas, yeah, I think the corporate world, as you say, has such a separation from it.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that, oh yeah, it happened in their home life, it didn't happen in their work life. Yeah, but their
Yeah.
work life caused this as well.
Yeah.
Um, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Um,
So
we've we've
we
all read the we've all read the news articles, right, about how our friends groups are shrinking, the amount of social time we spend away from significant partners versus people used to finish work and go drink with their friends kind of thing. And we're all working, like I work remote. Behind me is my workstation. I work remotely from home. The amount
Mhm.
of contact, if I didn't make an effort through the week with other people other than my partner, would be very minimal, because I work at home, my partner comes home, and that's kind of it. Um, and so that limits the, like, we're social creatures and we need that human connection as well.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people have forgotten since
Mm,
COVID, when this work from home sort of happened, is that we are social creatures at the end of the day, and that has completely diminished our social interaction. Okay, you might Zoom with people, but that's not the
not
same
the
as being
same.
in the same room.
Yeah.
Nah,
No.
it's crazy, and
Even
I think people have
even
got
even
less.
this is different, right? Like we're different sides of the world, and we're having
Yeah.
this interview. But this would not be the same as if we were in person having this chat.
Oh, 100% not. No,
Yeah.
no, no. The ones that I've done in person, I mean, I don't know. You feel, although these are still great, don't get me wrong, and I still want to keep doing these because I want people to see that, especially with the international side, that it's not just a UK problem, it's not just an Australian problem, it's a global problem that we're having. And um, but when you're in person with someone, that raw emotion that you feel with them when you're talking about what they've been through and everything, you feel it a lot more than when you're staring at a computer screen. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like when you're in person as well, you have the you're just with them. Whereas when you're in a computer screen, I don't know about yourself, but I find myself getting distracted by things. Um,
Yeah.
I want to stay focused on the interview and I want to stay focused on what we're talking about, but at the same
Yeah.
time, there are things in my room I'm looking at, or I'm looking at my interview notes on my phone while we're talking. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's not the same as if it's in person. It feels, yeah, just that human touch. That human touch gets lost a little bit, but we
And I
do what
think
we.
the I think the one other thing that you miss as well is, like, if this was in person, you would get the pre-interview, post-interview kind of chat with the person to catch up, which
Mhm.
like we might still do, which is fine in an interview because you're kind of scheduling time for this. But I think when you have it in a work setting, so many of us, when I look at my work calendar, it's meetings back to back to back. Whereas if it was in the office or in person, you would have the meeting and then you would kind of like hang around after the meeting and chat about people and be like, how was your day? Like, how's your family going? Like, what are your kids up to? Like the last
Yeah.
time I worked in an office, I knew all about this guy, Andre, that I work with. Great guy. Like he's got two kids. I knew what his kids were up to at the time because every time we'd catch up, we would catch up and talk and we would go for runs at lunch together. Whereas now, like I see him on a meeting maybe like twice a week. I have no idea what he's like. I haven't been in person with him for like 2 years now. So I have no idea what his kids are up to because we never have time. Like that's the other thing is like when we're remote and we're doing these Zoom calls, we are just packing so much more in because we're like, oh, we're being so productive, but we're missing out on that connection that we probably actually need to be better humans rather than better workers.
Yeah, it's almost like working like robots. It's not
Yeah.
because with like when you get to the end of a meeting when it's in person, you yeah, as you say, you have that little chat and the other person might be waiting outside, but they'll wait outside. But with
Mm.
a Zoom call, you've got to jump to the next Zoom meeting and the
Hmm.
next Zoom login
Yeah.
because yeah, well, they're sitting there waiting for you and you're in robot mode basically. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, the corporate world, yeah, has a lot to learn. And I think although there are a lot of benefits from this work from home thing, I think people struggle with it because I think that people get wrapped up in their own little heads and their own little world and forget about the outside world sometimes too.
Mm.
I don't know what Australia is doing about it at the moment, but people that the corporations are trying to get people to come back to work, or at least work from like a workspace rather than home now. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It is it depends on the company. And don't get me wrong, like I love my work from home job. I think there's ways around it. I used to work incident response, which was kind of a
mhm.
lot of shift work, a lot of late nights. And when you're working in incident response, it was very similar to the kind of military, how you're always on. And there was always good check-ins. So we would finish an incident, we would kind of sit around and we would have a beer on like a Friday on a Zoom call because like my boss was in Melbourne, one of the other guys in the team was like in Sydney, and another one was in Brisbane. I was in Adelaide at the time. Um, but that banter that you had in that smaller group where you were just socializing and you were just wrapping up a case, and that was kind of what you would do. Like, not if you were doing that in person, you would go to the pub. And so for us, that was just a jump on a call. We'd do 2 hours. We might get like, what's the Jack in the Box, the party game where you can all play like um it's just like
Oh,
quiz and stuff, and but it's like on Steam or whatever. We used to just
mm.
play that, like have a few beers, play that, jump on a Discord chat. Um, and that was fantastic. I have seen less and less of that the more the kind of work from home has gone on.
Yeah, I feel like so during COVID, for instance, when work from home really started, I did Zoom quizzes every Friday night, and I felt like
Mm.
that was our way of socializing. But I feel like now we've gotten away from COVID, work from home, that sort of thing with the bit after is less because people are have got their own plans. They're doing X, Y, Z, but then I don't think we should forget about the Zoom connection thing because of the fact that, like you say, there are people that are working across the country. And although you might have plans, the other person might have no one that they can go out with on a
Mm.
Friday night. So it takes away that from them.
Mm.
Um, and I think after having that during COVID, where you may not have had it before, and it can be quite make you feel really bloody lonely to go from having someone on Zoom to play things with and to nothing basically.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
very true.
but you mentioned with your friends, with their mental health and stuff that you've had to deal with too. And can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so different levels of um I guess mental conditions and mental illnesses. So yeah, so friends with BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, and I've gone through and been part of they have like carers support groups, but not groups for friends to help you try and deal with that. But it's kind of the same thing, because there's kind of quite a lot of mood swings. I guess friends who have been um, suicidal and just going through normal grief from stuff that's happened. And I guess some of the friends that have both attempted suicide and the ones that did, like you do all these training courses that are like, here are the signs that you can see. And like that's probably 15% of I don't know what the stat is, but there's so many that there is no signs.
Yeah.
Like there might be slight changes that they had, but then that's always retrospective. And you're like, oh yeah, like this day they were just more happy than normal. But is that just you coloring your own experience from what it was versus what they were actually dealing with? And it's not like it's so hard to be in those moments when you're like, was there anything else to do? But then it's not like they were doing their own internal struggle, and there was a moment where just no one was around or no one could do anything, that they decided that that was the only way that they could cope, or that they couldn't cope because they were dealing with so much. Um, but then the toll that that takes on both yourself and other relationships that you have is not not that I've gone to spiraling down to be suicidal myself while this has happened, but just the impact that it does have on your other relationships and how you feel and how you approach everything is like having your own separate support to talk to people while either while that's going on or while it's not going on. Like I see a therapist regularly. Um, and I recommend everyone, if you're privileged enough and fortunate enough to be able to afford it, or depending on your country, like we can get free mental health in Australia. It's just very hard to sometimes get in those long waiting periods.
Yeah.
So there is that in Australia, but definitely trying to find and talk to someone, and someone that's qualified, I think, is definitely helpful, because it's sometimes hard to unload everything that you're feeling and thinking to your closest friends and family. Like definitely lean on them, but then the kind of flow on effects can have negative effects with those people as well. So that's always challenging itself.
Yeah, I think it's the preconception of you talk to someone you care about these sort of things. Are they going to look at you differently? And unfortunately, I can't sugarcoat it. Yes, they will. Um,
Yeah.
but then they're not going to stop loving you and they're not going to stop caring about you, but they are going to look at you slightly differently and be a bit more concerned about you.
Mm.
Whereas with a mental professional, a mental health professional, even, you're sort of they're there to do that. And then once you
Yep.
are in a better place, they won't be around anymore to look at you in a certain way. Whereas your friends and
Yeah.
family are. Uh, so I think there's that side of it. And yes, no, therapy definitely is something that's helped myself as well. I think it
Mm.
is really important to talk to someone when you're struggling. Yes, you do have to be unfortunately privileged enough to get it because, like Australia, the NHS is a long waiting list.
Yeah.
And it does depend on the help that you get. And if you don't like the therapist you've got, you've then got a long wait to get another one.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very lucky that I have private healthcare through work, so I'm able to get quite through quite quickly to these little things. But I know not everyone's in that situation. But if there are options out there, so Samaritans, Pyrus, there are charities that run helpline calls that you can talk to professionals.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like in Australia, we've got plenty of helplines. Like it's not. I I think the human connection is so important. So like when I see my therapist, I try and go in person,
Mhm.
because I think that's the most valuable. Um, and in Australia, and I'm sure every Western, like first world country has this, but we've got free helplines. So I'm actually doing a charity push-up challenge for the month of June at the moment. So it's called, I think it's just called push-up challenge, but there's like 3 or 4 different charities that money can go towards. So mine, I've picked Lifeline, which is just a free call. There's someone who can help on the other line. They've gone through training. They can help talk you down from a ledge if you are suicidal. They can just help you point you in the right direction if you do need help. But the benefit is it's a 24/7 hotline. So you can call up any time of day, day or night, and get someone to help. And I think UK has something similar. You guys we might even be
Yeah,
named similar in the two countries. But yeah, um, there's for someone if they are listening to this and you are struggling, like there are those lines out there to at least get that initial triage help. And if things are really bad, just go to your emergency department because there's
mm,
always staff there that can help you. And they can help you put you in the right direction when the sun lights up and things are maybe a little bit better.
exactly. And I think that though, like we say about being privileged enough to seek therapy, I think that those helplines can act like a plaster until at least you can get the
Yeah.
actual help you need to get you out of that dark place for that time at least. Um, so yeah, we mentioned not in this interview, but when we've been emailing backwards and forwards, that
Yeah.
you unfortunately lost your father last year. I am
Yeah.
sorry for the loss. How have you managed that experience and your grief?
Yeah, that was a struggle because it was out of the blue. I think
Yeah.
seeing friends go through and like all my grandparents have passed now as well. So I think when you when you go through grief and it's someone who has reached an age where you expect them to start passing away, so things like grandparents or like illness that has just kind of gone on for so long, you have time to process that grief as time goes on. Um, Whereas with my dad, he got a very rare uh, brain bleed, which then turned into a stroke when he was in hospital. So he passed away in the space of about a month and was early 50s with no other health issues. So that was like out of the blue. So I think the grief for that and dealing with that was harder because it was out of the blue. And then seeing probably like my mum go through it so much that she's like they were married from she was 19 when they got married. My dad was 3 years older, 21. They'd been together for what's that like over 35 years or something. They were married. So um her losing her I guess like soulmate in that sense because they'd been together for so long um was really hard to for her to go through and for me to see I think was the worst part about that grief. um my immediate family though, like I think that's what held it and all of us together was that have been very fortunate to have a close knit small like immediate family group. So my parents and I've got 2 younger sisters as well. And at the time, so um, my 2 sisters are still living at home with my mum. So cost of living crisis actually did us good in that sense because they had to live at home. But I think that was really good to have family around. And that I was fortunate enough with my work because I work remotely and they gave me a bunch of time off as well for bereavement leave. I got to spend um, like 4 or 5 weeks kind of down home with the family, which was really good. So the grief process was, I think, harder up until he passed, and then it was because seeing him in so much pain was the worst part.
Mm.
Um, and then he was an organ donor, so that then is kind of the silver lining to the shit part of everything else. He was also pronounced brain dead, so they were able to donate his heart, which went to someone like within 2 days, and the all the transplants have been successful. So the amount of lives that have been saved out of that as well is shitty from our experience, but then great for those people that have received that and now living their lives. So um, I think it's a mix, and I think it's still something that I carry. Um, and the real kind of like sadness was sunk in for like 2, 3 months afterwards still. So this was October last year. So I think it was only until like the beginning of this year that I started to feel more normal again. Um, but we'll see when it comes around to, I guess, like the anniversary for this year, and kind of how that feels. And my middle sister's moving out of home, so um, my younger sister will living with my mum, but then we'll see kind of what happens there in terms of like what my mum will do. But I think having dealing with it all again was because we had that support there, and I couldn't imagine what it would be like if it was just my mum dealing with that, like what that impact would be if she didn't have the kids. And this speaks to like how much socialization we need as a species when we think about mental
Mhm.
health and we think about what it is we all need, because that's what got me through it. And I wasn't even the one, like, it wasn't my partner that passed away. It was my mum's. And I miss my dad, but it's not the same. It's not the same relationship. And so yeah, that socialization I think has helped not only me but my mum as well.
Would you say you felt not pressure, but an expectation to be to sort of suck it all up because you're obviously the older sibling, you're now the man, the man of your family, essentially. Did you feel like you had to suck it up a little bit to support them?
I didn't So I didn't feel the pressure in the sense of like that traditional like man of that house kind of thing. I don't think I've ever felt that because my family hasn't been that traditional.
Mhm.
So there wasn't that pressure there. I think there was the pressure to be just like organized and being the eldest in delivering kind of like the eulogy. So we didn't do a traditional funeral either. We booked out like a local venue at a club and put together like a slideshow and a bunch of speeches from people close to my dad. And then I kind of like emceed it with my sister. And I was very fortunate that my middle sister is very well organized and just like yeah, really good at organizing that stuff. So while I got to get up and do the majority of the talking, she did a lot of the organizing in the background. So the kind of teamwork that we had to deliver that. And it was funny because I felt really bad because I felt like I was just turning up and doing the talking. Like like I didn't do the video editing because her husband is great. He's lived with our family for ages. Um, so he did like the video editing and collected everything, and then she helped like organize all and do all the club stuff as well. Um, and yeah, I felt really fortunate. I was just like, oh, like I feel really bad because I just turn up and I talk and I had to get in front of everyone. But then it was funny talking to her after, like my sister. She was like, "Oh no, like I couldn't have got up and done all the talking by myself because like I just would have fallen apart." So I was happy doing the secondary kind of talking role, but doing all the organizing in the background. So it was almost like we just fell into these positions that we both supported each other to get us through that. And that pressure that I initially felt, I felt a lot less afterwards and talking to her about that because we were both just there to support my mum. And I think that was it was surprising how many people actually showed up. We were expecting like 50 and we had like 200 people show up because my dad
Wow.
worked in aged care. So he was a plumber by trade, became a builder, and he worked for this aged care home across the road from the club. And we picked the club because we wanted to be walking distance for the old fellas. And like 100 of them showed up, and we were like, oh wow, like so many of you showed up. Like this is amazing. And they had like the admin from there, the security guard, and everyone. And we're like, they were all sharing their stories with us. And I think this speaks to how much my dad knew about mental health. But all the old people liked him because everyone was like, oh, they always complain about stuff and they want stuff done around their house. And he's just like, yeah, like of course they want stuff around. But he'd hang around and have a chat with them in person. and they like fell in love with him and would always give him like Christmas gifts and everything else. And I don't think our family really understood until they all showed up and were sharing all these additional stories that they had of our dad, where he'd spend the time to just be with them. And when you think about people who go into these like old people's homes, their family generally stops visiting. So the whole idea is they move to these places, they're meant to have a community, but people get stuck in their ways. They don't like making new friends. And so it's kind of like solo living with everyone that's there. But then my dad would come and he would kind of like be this glue that would make them talk to each other a bit more and share stories and stuff. And yeah, that was like really nice to see and have those kind of stories that you could have shared with you after he'd passed.
I think, again, sorry for your loss, but I think that your dad made a huge impact. And I think that speaks to us as humans that we don't talk about the impact that we have in positivity. I think we're very, well, unless you've got a massive ego, talking about things that are positive about you is hard for most people. And I think we kind of dumb it down a lot when
Yeah.
actually your dad, for instance, probably came home and went, "Yeah, I had a great day. I spoke to blah, 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 blah,"
Yeah.
but didn't talk about what the impact of that was having. And for
Mm.
200 people to show up to his funeral when you were expecting 50 is
Yeah.
pretty incredible. Um, and yeah, and I think that's a testament to your dad and everything he did because I think the care home work. People do get in it for the right, or a lot of people get in it for the right reasons, but
Mm.
it's hard to maintain that patience,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
especially when you think how many probably forgetful old people are living in those homes and are probably telling you the same stories five, six, seven,
Yeah.
eight, nine, 10 times. And you
Yeah.
have to sit there and listen to it. I mean, I work with the public myself, and we have older customers that come in and they tell me the same thing. And I have to try and maintain my patience with them, with not
Yeah.
going, "You've already told me this, you've already told me this." And
Yeah.
just listen to them because at the end of the day, like you say, they are just lonely. And
Yeah.
imagine, I mean, 20 to 30-year-olds have trouble making friends. How the hell do you think it feels when you're in your 60s and 70s?
Yeah.
Um, when all of your friends have probably not left you but died. Um,
Yeah.
and to feel like you have to replace them is insane. Um,
Yeah.
so you mentioned the anniversary coming up. How are you
Mm.
feeling with your grief? Because losing your dad a year's not a long time.
Mm. Yeah, like honestly, it's been like this is the weird thing. It's been so busy with work. Like now that I've gotten back into the rhythm of it, um, like the years flown by now.
Hmm.
Um, I still try and well, I still do contact my mum regularly. So we call at least once a week. And we did that. Like I was never calling my dad that much. Like I'd always call and talk to my mum because my mum would want to hear about what's going on because we live in different states and
Yeah.
for your listeners for comparison, so like Australia is a very big country. Different
Oh
states
yeah.
for us it's like a 10-hour drive and it's the same country. So from here where I live to my home is a 14 and a half hour drive. Um,
Jeez.
yeah. So so we do try and call once a week, and I still try and maintain that. So in terms of like the anniversary coming up, like I think I'll just plan some time, like drive down, and spend some time just to see what's happening, or maybe like because my sister is moving to Melbourne, so another state. So if my mum goes to travel to Melbourne, like we'll just meet up there and kind of hang out and spend a week together, um, and just see how that feels. But yeah, it's definitely, I still catch myself sometimes being like, oh, I want to like call up and bring and tell my dad something. And I think that is like a weird, like mental thing. Like it's a mental trap because then I feel sad because I'm like, oh yeah, like my dad's not around anymore. Um, so yeah, that's like, it happens less and less. I think it's something that won't it won't ever not happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of like the the hard part of it all.
How do you deal with that when that does happen?
I usually try and call up my mum, just have a chat, because then I'm like, oh, I'll tell her what I wanted to tell my dad. Um, and then I just try and like, so I've got two dogs that take up a lot of my love and a lot of my time. So it'll just be like sitting down with them, giving them pat. Like one of them's in the office with me now. She just like sleeps on the floor whenever I'm in here. Um, so yeah, spending a lot of time with them. Like I like to train, so I'll if it happens during work, I kind of like lose my train of thought. So it'll just be like, okay, like I know I'm dealing with this. I need to go just train in the gym, put some music on, like call my mum after if it's after work, like call my mum. But um yeah, just do things that I enjoy that can kind of distract my brain a little bit, just so I'm not in the depth of that emotion to just
Mhm.
get through it, I think. So and that could even be just like taking the dog for a stroll out in sunlight. Um, so yeah, just finding stuff to be more calm, more grounded. Um, yeah, anything like that.
Makes sense.
Mm,
Makes sense. So where we've actually touched on another subject that I was going to talk about is that
mm,
you are an online transformation coach.
yeah.
Explain to me what that is.
Yeah, so I was a personal trainer when I was in uni. So that was just for some extra cash. I used to coach CrossFit. And then fitness has always been something that I've been into. So I kind of wanted to do something on the side to just fill up my time. And this was probably like mid last year. And yeah, like I started online coaching. And part of that I think is I've always known because when I coached in uni, is that when you coach people, you spend a lot of time talking about their life because it's not just about fitness. It's about all the reasons why they can't do fitness or all the reasons that they have for motivation to want to get fit. And everyone has different motivations. And a lot of it, especially when you coach parents, a lot of it's just I want to be able to run around with my kids until they're old because they're just like I'm past 30, past 40 now. I'm slowing down, but their kids are young and they're going to have all this energy. So that's a lot of motivation. And so when I say it's a transformation coach, I don't see it as like transforming someone from where they are to six pack abs. Like if that's what they want, great. But that's not the majority of my clients. The majority of my clients want to transform from where they are to a healthier version of them that's still going to be mobile when they're 70, 80 years old. And I think the transformation is the inwards transformation that you have to build better habits to
Mm,
then have that life that you want. Because you don't have to be super strict on your diet. You don't have to be hitting the gym 3, 4 days a week, but you do have to make changes to live a healthier life to then have that longevity. And a lot of people get into their mind that they're just like, if I'm not strict and I'm not at the point of where I'm going to achieve that in 2 weeks' time, then I failed. So why bother trying? Or they get a week in and they're like, I'm not reaching that because I keep failing, and they back out of it. That's that's the when we were touching on before, like the negativity that we have, especially of ourselves. If you don't have a coach there, you kind of get into that own negativity and you get depressed and then you don't do something for a week and then you're starting again. Or you feel like you're not starting again. You feel like you're starting again. But
mm,
maybe you've done 2 weeks and you had a one bad week. That's not a loss. Like, sure, it's a shit week, but just get back on the horse the next week and go again. And I think that's where I kind of come in and I spend most of my time with clients is that they're just like, oh, I just feel like I'm not progressing. But what I do is I track all their stuff and I'm like, hey, like let's look back at week one. Like, where did you come from? And when they look at week one and we're like week seven, and I'm like I had a client who went from 0 push-ups to 6 push-ups in 5 weeks. And she was like, I'm kind of stagnating. And I'm like, you did 6 push-ups last week. Like, you couldn't do one when you came to me, and you're doing 6 push-ups now, like for 3 sets. And she was like, oh yeah. But she was just hung up on this other negativity thing. And so I think that's when you've got someone dedicated to looking out for that for you, that's kind of what I do and why I love doing it. And if you've got friends that can keep you accountable and can tell you that, like that's great. But I think a lot of us don't, and you don't have people tracking what needs to be tracked and that kind of thing. So that's why this industry exists and why like I love helping people in it.
Well, I think with friends, well, I mean, they have their own lives. They can't sit there and track you,
Yeah,
and that's what
exactly.
coaches do. And I think again, like you touched on something there about accountability. I think that's the difference between your coach having a coach and not having a coach. Is you do have someone to hold you accountable. It's like with my giving up drinking a year ago. It was about 6 months into my sobriety, and I was actually on in a good place. But my therapist said, "I don't think we need to have these sessions anymore." I went, "No, I'll still want to have them at least once a month, because then I
Yeah,
know when I go back to her and I say I've slipped and had a drink, then I know I'm going to feel terrible about it." If it was
yeah,
me then holding me accountable, I'd be like, "Oh, so what? You screwed up. Let's just carry on drinking. There's no point."
yeah,
Um, but I think failure is a stepping stone to success. I don't think failure should be the be end of all, the end of the world when you fail. It doesn't have to be this catastrophizing thing that everybody gets in their mind. Um,
mm,
you have to fail to succeed.
mm,
I mean, you look at the great sports artists like Michael Jordan, um, Cristiano Ronaldo, David Beckham, whoever you want to talk about. Um,
yeah.
they would have failed at some point, and I guarantee they've got more misses than they've got goals.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, like Jordan, like I don't know what the percentage is off the top of my head, but like Michael Jordan's 3-point percentage was probably not over 40%.
Yeah,
So 60% of his shots are missing, but he's still like one of the greatest athletes in history. So if you look at failure in a micro lens of that moment you miss this shot, then of course you're going to feel like shit because you're like,
yeah,
you failed in that moment. But if you look over the span of a career, which is like 4 decades, like greatest player of all time. So it's all about the framing of what you're looking at the failure.
yeah, yeah. And nobody's going to remember, as you pointed out there, that no one's going to remember that failure percentage
Ah,
because of how many he actually got. And I
yeah.
think people nowadays as well are very, the attention span and the patience is a lot less than it was. And I think that we
Thank
have
thank
TikTok
you,
and
Instagram, for that.
yeah, and Instagram to for
Yeah.
causing them. And I think when they don't see, as you say, when you don't see results in 2 weeks, you get down on yourself and you get a thing. But no, this isn't a sprint. This
Yeah.
is a marathon.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get better without it. And fitness and exercise and mental health are completely combined. I
Yeah.
used to, but you have to enjoy what you're doing. So I've always been a little bit bigger, and I've never liked exercise, never liked doing sport. But I did when I was at primary school, but obviously young, running around, had a lot of energy then. Now in
Yeah.
my 30s, not so much. But, and my therapist always said to me, if you don't like doing it, it is not going to help you. And that's when I found walking. And that has changed my perspective on things. It's made me healthier and
Yeah.
it's held me accountable with a few things as well. And I think you just have to find yourself the right type of exercise. If going to the gym and working out isn't your thing and you force yourself to do it, that's going to affect your mental health the other way. Um,
Mm.
although you will get those endorphins eventually, but it will take a long time to build up that sort of love for it if you really, really
Yeah.
don't like it. And I think that
Yeah.
is important for people to realize when people are going on about exercise and everything with mental health is yes, it's fantastic for it, but it only works if you like it.
Yeah. I will say there's like there is some mental pain to get through to liking it, because it's like I now love it, and
Mhm.
I do remember when I first started, like I hated putting in going to the gym. I think for the type for the type of benefits we need going into our 50s and 60s, we do need to be going to the gym and lifting weights, and sometimes you're going to hate it. I think there's benefits in putting incentives for you to get through gym sessions. So then, like where you're
Mhm.
making deals with yourself to say, okay, I can go do this thing that I enjoy if I get through this gym session. And I think that's a good way of getting yourself to do that. And then over time, that becomes more enjoyable where you need less and less incentive to get through it. Because it is hard when you start, and it does suck because your body hurts. Like it's something that's unfamiliar. I think where a lot of people get caught in the trap of things is they go, I need to go 4 days a week straight away, and I need to be doing hour sessions 4 days a week to get the benefit. Whereas you don't. Like if you're doing walking or 3 days of moderate exercise that you really enjoy, and then you say to yourself, okay, for 1 day a fortnight, I'm gonna go lift weights,
Mhm.
and you just do that for 12 fortnights in a row, then you've got consistency. And then when you get to the end of 12 weeks, you just go, oh, I'll go for 1 day a week now. And then you build up there. I think that has flow-on effects that the small amount of pain that you'll feel for going to the gym has significant value going into the later years of your life when you're building lean muscle mass. Um, and I think that's the challenge though, is it's trying to say to your brain, I don't have to jump in and commit, because a lot of, and this also talks to like my other thing that I think people need to do less of is spend less time on TikTok and Instagram, because fitness is huge on those platforms. And what you see is the extreme. You see people who are spending 6 days in the gym, and they're also taking up to their gills on just performance enhancing drugs. And they look amazing, but they're probably taking 20 years off their life. And they're also um, making money off this. So there's a capitalist incentive for them to look that way. And we're consuming so much of that media because we just get into this doom scrolling um, kind of black hole of watching these things, and we go, oh, if I want to look like that, I need to be training 4 days a week. But you probably need
Yeah.
to be training 5 days a week and taking like 2 grams of testosterone. But that's not what you need to live a healthy life. Like I think that's this blurred line between social media and then this healthy lifestyle that we should be having. Yeah, we see a lot that's not accurate on what you actually need to just be doing.
100%. Social media, unfortunately, has this horrible thing of showing the perfect life when actually, if you looked behind the camera lens, they're probably not living that happier life. Some of them might be, but yeah, it's, and also again, it's with this patience thing. Is you'll see that on Instagram and TikTok and whatever else, but is that how long has it taken them to obtain that to then
Yeah.
become famous on Instagram as well? Um, you've got to keep that in mind as well. And I think even these people that are posting about this forget about that, their own journeys. They're like, if you do this, you'll get this. And it's like, well, hold on a minute,
Yeah.
but how long is it actually going to take?
Yeah.
Be honest with the freaking
It's
food. For a second.
it's all marketing. It's exactly what
Mm.
TV like ad agencies have done for decades. Is like they're just like, drink this shake and you'll have six-pack abs. Like that's not how that works. Like you can't drink a shake and get abs. And it's the same thing as like you can't do these three exercises and all of a sudden you're gonna be jacked. Like, sorry, that's just not how it works. Like those people have been training for over 10 years and dedicate their life to the gym to look that good. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a mis-selling thing. But also one of the things that like so we've talked about obviously the people that may not be incentivized to go to the gym, but I think there are some people as well that get very obsessed with the gym, with diets, and it's important as well not to send yourself the other way because that will have its negatives as well. So how do you stop yourself going down that rabbit hole?
Oh, there's like I definitely have slight body dysmorphia issue myself. And I think
Mhm.
that's very common with men.
Yeah.
Um, I think because quite a lot, I don't know how to describe it, but like we don't necessarily have the social pressure that women do in terms of looking a certain way based on fashion and makeup and a beauty standard. But there is a standard for men that is like be a certain height, be like successful, make money, also be fit. And I think when you start going down that road of working on yourself to be fit, it is very easy to then slip into that next category where you're like, okay, I'm starting to get fit, but I'm not big enough. Like I don't have as much muscle. And part of that's just like, I think the male social psyche that has been around that space since probably like the 1940s. Um, and then part of that's fueled by social media now, where every man and his dog is on a bunch of drugs. That is like our the generation has moved away from party drugs into performance enhancing drugs, and that's the kind of problem that we're having with like young men these days. Like there are on my like I try not to look at social media too much, but when I do, it's a bunch of young 20-year-olds taking like testosterone, masterone, tren, like these compounds. Even if you were to take compounds, like when you talk to professional bodybuilders, because everyone now knows that that is just rampant with drugs. But
Yeah.
those guys generally don't start until their late 20s, 30s, because that's when your genetic potential finishes when you hit 30. And so then they start taking these drugs and they get massive and they continue in the bodybuilding circuit. You've now got 21-year-olds. Like even I think I saw a reel the other day of like a 16-year-old apparently. Like he on his reel, he was like 16, here's my stack. And I was just like you haven't even finished growing. Like your brain hasn't finished growing. Like you probably can grow a little bit taller and yet you're taking this gear and not a healthy like no amount's healthy, but just an unhealthy amount. Like it's insane. Like what's happening here. And I think the general person, like that's an extreme version. I think the general person, when they get into fitness and they get into the gym, I don't know anyone who's not like, I don't want to be bigger when they get to the gym. So you have this level of body dysmorphia where you look at yourself and you're just like, I'm not changing quick enough. I'm not getting big enough. And you will see people that you hadn't seen in a while, and they'll be like, oh, you're getting really fit. Like you look a lot bigger and that, and you just like you kind of drink that in for a little bit, and then you go back to the gym and you're like, man, I still wish I could grow faster. And I've experienced that myself. And I don't have a solution for that. That's a constant battle. And that's where I would have like I have my own coach. So that's where I have my own coach and I go to him and I'm like, hey, like I feel like I'm not growing big enough. And then he's just like, what do you feel like you're not growing big enough? And I'm like, it might be like a particular body part. And he's like, okay, next program, that's what we're going to focus on. So then it's targeted, and I know for 8 weeks we're working on that body part. We'll take before photos, we'll take after photos, and then we'll compare. And that then gives you a defined time to go, okay, I'm going to trust the process to grow that body part. And I think that's where it helps when you can make it measurable and you put a time frame around things, but it doesn't
Mm.
escape the mental kind of hurdles you go through constantly, which is I just feel like I'm not progressing.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think as well, where you say like when you go back to the gym and you think you're not growing fast enough, it probably doesn't help that you've probably got people that are hench as hell that are going there and
Yeah,
you're seeing them again. Why am I not like him yet?
yeah,
But
yeah,
again, the comparison thing we all are going to have mentally. But I think the thing you said about the tracking And obviously having a coach that's going to track you will help that, because anytime you're doubting yourself, you go back and talk to them and it's like, oh, okay, I am progressing. I think it's just a reminder, isn't it? Because I think
Yeah.
our minds have unfortunate tendencies to go towards the negative, and it's very hard to get out of that mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I think it helps sometimes if you compare it to other areas in your life. So if I compare my fitness journey to my professional career, like you
Yeah.
don't expect to come into a job and be at a director level in a year's time. Like you can see the progression, you can see how much you need to learn between a junior role and all the roles you go through, because it's in corporate world, it is marked out to
Yeah.
a director role. And that's like 10, 12, 15-year path, right? And if you want to get there, that's what you head towards and you go, okay, that's my 15-year career goal plan. And so I think we don't apply that to other areas of our life. So if you want to apply that to fitness, you go, okay, this guy in the gym that I see, like, I want to be as big as him. But then you can go talk to him. You can be like, hey, man, like, how long have you been training for? Like, what's your diet like? Like, what are the hurdles? But we don't have that conversation. And it's not
Yeah.
clearly mapped out for us at all. But when you do get a coach and they go, okay, we can get you there. But and I do this with my clients. I can get you there, but it's going to take you 5 years to get to that point. And then they're like, okay. And I'm like, but what we're going to do is we're going to break down mini goals from now until that 5 year point so that we know whether you're going to hit that 5 year mark on time. Maybe you'll hit it early, maybe you'll hit it a bit later. But we know where along the ladder you are. But that's just from my experience. Like I know what the milestones are to get there. And so
Mm.
that's when you can kind of break that down yourself in other areas of your life, whatever it is, like it can be anything. If you can break down those mini milestones, then you can kind of track your own progress.
Yeah. And I think that's important. I think getting obsessed with an end goal can be where people will hit failure quicker, will probably give up easier. Whereas I
Mm,
think, as you're saying, if you split it into mini goals, like promotions, for instance, on that way to that director role, um, it can get people a bit more focused
mm,
and not fail, basically.
mm.
Okay. So who do you talk to when you're low? Who's your support
Uh,
network?
I definitely talk to my dogs a lot. I don't know how helpful or how much they understand. Um, I have an amazing therapist who I got when I was in defense, and I've been very
Mm.
fortunate to keep her um, since I've gotten out. So when I do go through things, I will see her anywhere between every fortnight to every month. At the moment, I just kind of check in when I feel like I need to check in. And sometimes that might even be um, like something positive has happened in my life and I haven't seen her in 3 months. I might just book in and fill her in and also fill her in on the last 3 months just so that if something does happen, it's not then 6, 8 months of catch up because that's hard. Um, I have my partner who I talk to as well. We're pretty good at checking in with each other. And then I've got a group of friends who all of us have are either currently serving or have served in the military, but we play D&D together every Tuesday night. And yeah, that's like a pretty close group of friends. Like I've been to like a couple of the guys' weddings and stuff. So uh, and we live all over the country because it's military. You get posted a lot, move around, and so that's the kind of virtual friends group that is really good. That we keep that up. We try and keep it pretty regular. So for me, that's on in yeah 2 nights time. I missed last week, so it'll be good to see them this week. Um,
Mm.
and there's opportunity there. Like if some of us need to talk about stuff, like we feel like we can talk about stuff. But other than that, like it's really great just catching up socially and then just playing something that all of us enjoy playing together. Um, and then yeah, other like my coach as well. So we're now catching up once a month, and most of the time, I feel like every time now because we're doing once a month, we don't even train. I just get there and we kind of both talk about our lives and we just catch up because we don't text each other that often.
Mm.
But just when we catch up in person, we kind of just like, oh, like what's been happening? And that's a really good catch up. And then my immediate family as well. So like my mum and my two sisters. So um, yeah, like for me that feels like a pretty substantial support network that I have. Um,
100%.
that I feel like I can reach out to any of them at any time and find like if someone's busy or someone's dealing with something, then I have someone else to reach out to talk about
Hmm.
stuff. So I think that's really helpful.
No, 100%. And I think having a support network that you can rely on and not having just one person is so important because
Mm.
I think that's where some people may have a downfall is that you put all your support network into one person and they're not free, you fall apart. So it's
Yeah.
important to have that network out there. And no, it's good that you've got that.
Mm.
In your opinion, what can we do more as men to help other men speak up and talk more about how they're feeling?
Yeah, I think it's just like it's a human thing, but when you share vulnerability, um, and I know there's differing opinions on this because like some people are like men shouldn't share vulnerabilities because then they're looked at differently. Um, I think that depends on cultural background and a bunch of other factors. Personally, I think you should share vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
and I think within reason. Like, don't share it with a complete stranger. Um, and maybe like I don't think the workplace is at that stage yet. Between differing levels of people. So if you're like maybe if you have a work colleague that you're at the same level with that you're really close with, like I think that's appropriate. Um, but yeah, I think just sharing vulnerabilities more, because then if you are more likely to share, it creates a level of trust, and then people are more likely to share with you. Um, it's hard in the sense of and I think this just starts with not even sharing vulnerabilities, just being more open to talk to people. Like if you're going to the gym, like there's nothing wrong with saying hello to someone who's next to you and just starting up a general conversation and trying to just build more human connections. Because even that in itself, even if you're not sharing vulnerabilities, if you feel more connected to more people, I think you feel better in yourself. And that's
Mm.
just like saying hi to someone at the gym, saying like having a conversation. Don't go through self-checkout at the shopping center and just go through a cash. Like, I don't know whether you have this in the UK as well, but everything's going like automated. But go through the line and while they're scanning your groceries, just be like, oh, hey, how's your day? Like, what's been happening? Like, got anything on the weekend? Like, it doesn't have to be anything consequential. It just has to be a conversation because I think
Yeah.
we're losing the ability to have conversations with random people. Um, so
I
yeah,
know,
just
but
anything like that.
if they're not answering you back, stop talking.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like read social cues. But even like I've been very fortunate where I've moved at the moment is that the neighbors are really friendly. So being able to say hello to your neighbors and stop and having a talk, like I think and even having neighbors who feel like they can like I was away and I had a friend looking after the house and my dog was barking and my neighbor called me up and he was like, hey, is your dog okay? And I was just like, yeah, it's fine. Like I've got a friend there, like she's probably just distressed, like waiting for my friend to come home to feed her or something. And he was like, oh, okay, no worries, just wanted to check. But just that level of connection is good to have. So I think that is don't think that you need to go and share your vulnerability straight away. That's end goal. I think if we're talking about stepping stones, start with having a conversation with a stranger first,
Yeah.
read some social cues, build up that because you don't know where you're going to find a really good friend. If you are looking for places to make that easier, um, when I lived in Sydney and I was by myself, I joined Meetup. I don't know whether it's an American startup, and I don't know whether you guys have it in the UK, but it's a website. You can go on and find like social events. And so I used to go to group dinners, and it was a really good idea. But they'd book out a restaurant. They would book there was only 20 spots, and then they sat you in groups of five, and you would just sit and have dinner with random people and have a conversation. And the whole point was you were there to meet and make friends. Um, and that was fantastic. Like I made some really good friends from that group when I was there. But they do like things like run clubs now and all that kind of thing. Like that's all similar stuff. So find an interest that you have, go do that. Try and just have some conversations and make some friends.
Yeah, definitely. No, I don't know if it's exactly the same thing, but there is something that keeps getting advertised out on Instagram for dinners out with random
Yeah.
people, which, to be honest with you, it absolutely fucking terrifies me eating in front of strangers. But but it is something out there for people that are
Yeah.
lonely and need to make friends, definitely 100%. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for talking to me today, Alex, and I think we'll cut it there.
Yeah.
Um, please check out his channel. If you need any advice or help, please talk to him. And again, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Jack.
All right, hope everyone's having a great day and a great mental health day, and I'll speak to you guys soon.